Eric, hello.
Hey, hi.
Hey, you're on with Combat Radio. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good. A little chaotic here, but I think the main point is that we get this quote-unquote money laundering scheme that William's talking about analyzed for our audience. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Well, the United States writers of audiovisual works and performers and directors have national treatment rights under the Berne Convention and soon actually under what is now known as the Beijing Treaty, which is a treaty for the protection of audiovisual performances. And that means that in countries in which there are performers' rights and authors' rights, that U.S. citizens have the same rights as the citizens of those countries. So monies that are collected that are known as royalties, remuneration for performers and authors being writers and directors, are collected for U.S. citizens. What should have been done a long time ago, but which was concealed. The national treatment rights were concealed from the U.S. citizens who write not only now or in the future, write, direct, and perform audiovisual works, and by concealing the national treatment rights, they co-opted what would have been our ability, it still remains our right to do so, to create collecting societies. Collecting societies are also known as rights societies, and that would mean that the U.S. society for those citizens that write, direct, and perform audiovisual works produced in this country would then enter into agreements with the similar societies in those foreign countries and then collect for us and distribute to us the monies collected. However, that was the unions, Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, the WGA Writers Guild, and the Directors Guild, presented themselves as legally mandated collecting societies, which they are not. Also told the collecting societies that we had agreed through collective bargaining to give, at that point, more than 90% to the companies that employ us. So they, all of the collecting societies cannot actually do this. So they require that the unions indemnify them for the difference, which means that should we go after the collecting society for what they gave to our employers, the unions would then pay us. So they needed to conceal all of this from us, and they actually presented it as small sums collected for us, and that we should be very grateful that they did this, if they had told us about this at all. And in fact, no one actually understood it or knew about it until I had the agreement. And in truth, they had denied that there was ever even an agreement. So I hope I have explained it clearly. But that's the genesis of it. When they were sued by Mr. Richard in 2005, they began telling various stories, and in fact, I would say that they've told so many stories that they can't keep them straight any longer.
You want to support that? They can't keep their story straight with you any longer?
Well, not only
I said they can't. They've told so many different stories that they can't keep them straight any longer.
No, that's okay. I was just looking to William to actually substantiate what you're saying. Let me ask you real quick: how much do you figure has been collected? Do you have an estimate on that? How much do you figure is owed, basically? How many billions are we talking about now?
Oh, but we're in the hundreds of millions. I mean, if you look to the Writers Guild that claims that it has paid out 120 million, that it has collected and paid out 120 million, when one considers that in the beginning that would have only been 7.5% of what was being collected being paid to writers, and then 25%, and then in recent years, allegedly 50%. So there's no way of actually knowing this, since they provide no accounting, and in fact, we're shredding the accounting until a whistleblower brought that out of the building and gave it to federal investigators. So I would say hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. But the records exist. They have claimed that the collecting societies no longer have the records. But the truth is that collecting societies are created by foreign laws and are mandated to file every year their financial dealings. And you know, this is the age of computers, and all records of this exist of what monies were paid to the unions and to the companies.
Let me ask you this again real quick. You said they were shredding the accounting evidence before the whistleblower basically made this situation known.
what happened is that what they would do is they kept no records. What they would do is that the monies are wire transferred, which they always claim that they came in checks. So when the monies were wire transferred, then the union, if they would then write checks for the first time. So the checks were written for the first time by the union. The union would write a check and then claim, this is within itself, inside the union itself, claim that they could not find the individual. These checks were deposited into an undeliverable account. The records of the checks were Xerox copies of the records of the check, and after 6 months' time, every 6 months, they would be shredded. So there was a woman who worked at the Writers Guild who felt that she shouldn't be doing this, and so she basically hid around in various parts of the building what she had been instructed to shred. And when she had learned that they were investigating this, she brought it out of the building and gave it to the federal investigators.
That sounds very, very serious. In fact, actually in studio with me is Mark Ryan, who most people know from films like The Prestige or, Robin Hood, but he was Bumblebee in the Transformer films. And when you made the motion about the guild not being able to find people, he motioned to himself like you're one of those people. That's the excuse they've been giving you.
Well, no, what happened was, and I'll just reiterate this, I won't go into the details of it because it did get sorted out in the end, but I was due some residuals on a film that I'd done on a video release, and I called up Screen Actors Guild and said, I'm due this money, and they said, well, it's going to be in the next accounting quarter because they do it in the quarter. And the lady I was talking to, she said, but we are holding money in trust for you. And I went, really? I said, you're kidding me? She said, yeah, we've got money. We've been holding money here since 2001.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And I said, that's great. And I said, well, I'm thinking, well, a couple of $100, So I said, well, can I ask you why? And he said, yeah, because we've tried to write to you, and the checks keep coming back that you don't live there. And I said, well, it's funny because when you send me the demand for my really yearly dues for the union, they find me just fine. They always find me, you know what I mean? So,
yes.
And I said, that's kind of interesting. I said, well, what is it, a couple of $100? She said, I can't give you the amount over the phone. You'll have to come into the office. I said, yeah, but I'll give you 3 guesses. I said, okay, well, is it $1,000? She went, it's more than that.
She said she can't give you the amount, but she'll give you 3 guesses.
Right.
That's professional-ism at its finest.
And
right?
I'm not making this up, this is true. I said, is it more than $2,000? She went, yes, it's more than $2,000. And I went, okay, I've got to go for it now. I said, is it more than $3,000? And she said, yes, it is.
And you said, I'm on my way.
And I said, I'll be down there tomorrow to get a check. And I said to the people, I went and presented myself and said, here's my card, I've paid my dues, why has this happened? And they said, well, we've obviously got, I said, the address that you've got is exactly the same address, and you've had this money since 2001. So it had it at that point for maybe 8 years or something.
Okay.
I said, now who gets the interest?
Did you ever get a letter about a settlement for the foreign levies? Did you ever get
no,
a letter?
I don't remember having ever received a letter regarding that.
Interesting. So
But what's very interesting about what you just said, there are a couple of things, and this is what we've, in the demand for accountability that we've served on the Screen Actors Guild, is that when you claim that you have not been that the money's been forwarded back, you have to maintain records of those, whether it's copies or the originals. You have to have a record that shows they return to sender. And so they're going to have to produce about 77,000 of those. But also, and this is even more important, is they fraudulently endorsed your checks. The unions do not have the authority, which would have to be given by each individual, which means that you would have had to sign an authorization for them to endorse your checks. So they have been for years fraudulently endorsing residuals checks. They do not have the right to do that. So we're holding them accountable for that as well.
Okay.
And these are very serious matters. Also, as I said, the foreign royalties are wire transferred. No one has ever authorized, which you would have to do individually, the unions to accept wire transfers of your money. Also,
wire
for
transfers
them
are
to
a federal offense under the RICO Act.
I asked for the interest.
Yeah,
I said,
but
who gets the
that's mail
interest of
fraud,
this?
because also when you receive what was more than $3,000, you didn't receive the accounting that they originally had. So you don't actually know, and the likelihood, which is what we discovered with the whistleblower, is that it was a lot more. What she said is that with residuals, that someone would call and say that they found that you have residuals for me. So she would call the chief financial officer at the Guild and in his office, and he would say, how much? And she would say, 30,000. He would think for a second and say, give him 6. So it's quite serious.
Right.
And they've been doing this for many years.
So they just made up the figure.
A mafia mentality of giving just enough to keep quiet.
And because you didn't receive, I'm sure you'll verify this. You didn't receive an accounting. You didn't receive what they initially received.
No, they just gave me a check. They wrote me a check on the spot. Were happy to get me out the office because I was actually in the office with other people standing around going, where's the interest on this money?
Well, that's not evidence of anything because a lot of people want you out of their office.
Yeah, that's true.